Ruti had asked, we speak about, in the Musaf davening, we speak about when the third temple will be rebuilt, and that we will restore the service to the temple. And at the very end of each Shemona Esrei, right, Vashevet Avodah L'Vir Beitecha, and then Bracha of Ritzei, bring back the service L'Vir Beitecha to your temple, to the house, right? She'ibaneh Beit HaMikdash, right? The Beit HaMikdash will be rebuilt, and then we will bring offerings, and to our mindset, animal sacrifices seems like something that is from the past. It's not something that moves us spiritually in any way. On the contrary, I think it we find it pretty distasteful, right? So the simple meaning of what we're saying is it will be instituted, and that's what I understand will happen. It will be reinstituted. But I always say, along with that reinstitution, there will be a whole different understanding of what it is and what it means. Right? There will have to be a it will only accompany with an appreciation of the incredible spirituality. And keep in mind, to us it seems so foreign, korban, the word for korban, sacrifice, korban comes from the word karov, right? That it brings us close to Hashem, right? Again, we don't see it. Myself, I'm on that list. I'm on the list, right? We can understand it on certain levels, but when I think about a spiritual experience, it doesn't involve an animal and blood. So I can confidently say that it will not be reinstated until we have an appreciation of what it is. Now, there are those that say, we had a speaker here, I think he quoted Rav Kook on this, I'm not sure, that it wouldn't be animal sacrifices that will be reinstated, but it will be only, like the meal offerings, all those, right? Quite honestly, I don't understand that so well. That doesn't seem to be what we're saying in our davening. And even theologically, let's say, if God doesn't need us to bring something physical to Him, then He doesn't need our wheat and our fruit baskets either. If there is something to be gained by our giving something to Him, so then why draw the line by a fruit basket? Yes, but a sacrifice not.
Right, because he's not human, so he's not going to benefit from this. It says the smell
Correct.
goes to him.
Correct. Well, look, what's very clear is it's not for him, it's for us. Right?
That's the way that we want to show our serving.
Correct. It's not for him, it's for us. Again, I agree with you that according to our present understanding and call it sensitivities, it doesn't do that much for us. Yeah, but we'll have to have an adjustment of that, and look, by Pesach they talk about just how much blood, it's like, wow, that doesn't sound, but that's how, that was a certain spirituality that again, that's hard for us to really see.
But we'll have the Passover sacrifice, and that's for us to eat it, and we're going to get that back. That will come back, for sure.
That's why I asked him.
Yeah. We speak about, almost all the covenants coming back. though we did have in our Tehillim class last night, so we said, Bo'u Sha'arav B'toda, V'chatzerotav B'tehila. I'm getting a little bit wrong.
For praise.
Yeah. So there are those that explain that in the time of the Mashiach, when we come to the Chatzer, to the courtyard, it will only be with the Korban Toda. The only sacrifice will be a sacrifice of thanks, because all of the sin offerings, all the other things, will not be relevant during the Messianic times, right? And the Chatzerotav will come with Tehillah, right? Will come with praise. So that again is a similar idea, that when we come to pray, it will not be to ask for things; it will just be with Tehillah. It will just be with praise. Right, so that indicates that some karbonot will not be, but others still will be. So,
I know that there is a movement in Israel with all these rabbis, that Kohanim, and everything that they're preparing already for the third temple, and they know what they're going to do, and they really establishing and thinking how it's going to.
Look, there is the Temple Institute, which is, if you go by the Kotel, you see they have a menorah over there, which has a lot of gold in it. It's not solid gold, but they are preparing the vessels for the third temple. That is clear.
This will be the end of Israel.
Sorry?
This will be the end of Israel. It will cause a...
I agree with you and I disagree with you.
Yeah. Before that, so
I agree with you. It will cause
milchemet achim, like an inside collision.
If the Moshiach will come before it, it will be peaceful.
So, yeah.
I'm not talking about the Moshiach. I'm talking about reinstate
a Beit HaMikdash before Mashiach.
But it's not going to happen before the Mashiach.
I agree with you and I agree with you, right? If we were to do it prematurely before Mashiach comes, right, it will be it will probably be disastrous, right? When it happens with Mashiach, everyone will be shechem echad,
right,
shoulder to shoulder, right? Us and the umot ha'olam, the nations of the world, right, will all be with that same recognition, that same understanding.
It's not going to be in our life, so...
I don't say that.
Don't say it like that.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. B'chol yom achaka lo sheyavo, aval pi sheyitmameh. Even though he tarries, we wait every day. Okay. So there are a couple of truly fascinating issues that come up. We have a double parsha this week, Nitzavim Vayelech, and I want to spend a little bit of time on Nitzavim, and then I want to go to some psukim in Vayelech. Okay, and this really has to do with. I was on a panel at the J. I was on a panel at the J about a week and a half ago, and a very fundamental difference in, I would call it, my Orthodox approach, and another one of the rabbis on the panel, his conservative approach, came up. A very fundamental difference to how we view God, how we view the world. And on Shabbos, there was another conservative rabbi who came here at Sudash Lishit, and I continued the conversation with that individual, and because I was probing to see, was that this person's approach, or is that really the movement's approach? And I can't generalize that is everyone in the movement's approach, but for these two conservative rabbis that I had this discussion with, they both had the same approach. And to me, right, I mean, everything that I've learned, it's not even a question of, is that the approach that is taken from classical sources, right? But we'll discuss that a little bit when we get to Vayelech, okay? So, but let's first look, right, Ruti brought up the idea of the sacrifices and etc. during the Messianic times. And there is our Parsha Nitzavim, and this whole book of Devarim is Moshe speaking to the nation, right, coming close to his death, and Moshe speaking to the nation. Actually, Vayelech, the second Parsha, it is 30 days, according to the Orach Chaim, is exactly 30 days before Moshe's death. And but this is all Moshe preparing us for the long haul ahead, okay? Until the Messianic times, speedily in our days, Yafi, right? Yes, Amy?
I mean, without going off topic, but just in like a couple sentences, what's the significance of the 30 days? Like, why talk to us now, 30 days?
Okay, so he wasn't limited. His speaking was not limited to 30 days, but we'll come to that soon. The Parsha begins with a very strange verse, and the commentators explain that in a fascinating way, and that's why I got the 30 days. We'll come to that soon. So I want to go to page 1090, page 1091. And here is where verses 1 through 6, the Torah discusses really what will be during these Messianic times. So let's take that Aleph through Vav first in Hebrew and then in English. So Marta, you want to take it away?
Yes.
No? Okay, we'll save the English for you, Marta.
וכי יבואו עליך כל הדברים האלה, הברכה והקללה אשר נתתי לפניך, והשבות האלה לבביך בכל הגויים אשר ידיחך השם אלוהיך שמה. ושבת עד השם אלוהיך ושמעת בקולו, בכל אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, אתה ובניך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך. ושב השם אלוהיך את שבותך ורחמך, ושב וקבצך מכל העמים, אשר יפיצך השם אלוהיך שם. אם יהיה נידחך בקצה השמיים, משם יקבצך השם אלוהיך, משם ייקחך. ואביאך השם אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר ירשו אבותיך, וירשת והיטיבך וירבך מאבותיך. ומל השם אלוהיך את לבבך ואת לבב זרעך, לאהבה את השם אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך למען חייך.
Okay, right there. In English, please.
It will be that when all these things come upon you, the blessings and the curse that I have presented before you, then you will take it to your heart among all the nations where Hashem your God has dispersed you. And you will return to Hashem your God and listen to his voice according to everything that I command you today, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your soul. Then Hashem your God will bring back your captivity and have mercy upon you, and he will return and gather you in from all the peoples to which Hashem your God has scattered you. If you're dispersed will be in the ends of heaven, from there Hashem your God will gather you in, and from there Hashem will take you.
Just 1 second, and I mentioned, I think, that when I spent Shabbos in Israel this past summer with my son, before the men's JWRP trip, and all the men came, so I spent Shabbos with my son, and it was incredible that the Friday night meal, sitting at his table with a friend of his who was of Moroccan descent, another friend who was Taimani, Yemenite, a very close friend, a wonderful guy he came as a young boy from Ethiopia, right? And he's now really a Talmid Chacham, and my son who was there, American Israeli, and another person who was there, she was also Israeli, but from more of the European descent. And we were sitting there at the table having a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Friday night Shabbat meal. And everyone is singing a zemer, right? One of the zmirot, one of the Shabbat songs, according to the way they heard it in their houses, and we're all joining in. and my son speaks about my father, alav shalom, his grandfather, and teaches everyone a tune that my father liked to sing to one of the Zmirot Sur Mishalo. And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, wow, I'm not reading about or not hearing about, I am sitting in the midst of the fulfillment of prophecies. Kibbutz Galiyot, exactly, right? If you're dispersed, will be at the hands of heaven. From there, Hashem God will gather you in. From there, He will take you, right? And I said, I'm literally living. I'm sitting at the fulfillment of prophecies that had anyone spoken about this, had anyone, right? Let's go back 80 years. Right? 1927. No, that's 1937. We'll go back 90 years. Right? Imagine someone saying, oh, your grandchildren, right? You in Yemen, you in Morocco, you in Poland, you in Hungary, you in Austria, you in Ethiopia, or your children are going to be sitting at a table in Jerusalem on a Friday night, having a beautiful Shabbat meal together. They would say, okay, call the people in the white coats, right? It's very sad, but this person has snapped, right? I mean, it would have been so incomprehensible. Incomprehensible. And as I often say, and when they were liberating Buchenwald, if someone would have said that the youngest child to be liberated there is going to become the chief rabbi of the state of Israel, they'd say this person has understandably so after what they endured in Buchenwald, this person has lost their mind. And I think we get a little bit complacent, and we don't realize just what an incredible time period we are living in. And what we almost take for granted is something that 2 generations ago, they couldn't even have dreamt about it. That all the grandchildren would be sitting there together at a Shabbat meal in Yerushalayim, lo yu'uman. But that's exactly what it says over here. If you're dispersed, will be at the ends of the heaven. From there, Hashem your God will gather you in. From there, He will take you. 5 and 6. Continue, Marta.
Hashem your God will bring you to the land that your forefathers possessed, and you shall possess it. He will do good to you and make you more numerous than your forefathers. Hashem your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your offspring to love Hashem your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and that you may live.
Okay, now before we get to verse 6, which is where the Ramban, Nachmanides, really goes to town, but verse 3, in the English we don't get it, we don't see it. In English, then Hashem your God will bring back your captivity and have mercy upon you. In the Hebrew, it says, Vishav Hashem Elokecha et Shavutcha.
Return you.
Right? Now, there is the passive, I'm not much of a diktuk person, right? There is a way to say it that I will do to you, and there is what Lilvosh means I will get dressed. Lihitlabesh means I will dress someone else, right?
No.
Lahaldish. Right? I will be dressed. Right. So it doesn't say Veheshiv Hashem Elokecha et Shavutcha. Veheshiv would mean God will bring back your remnants. It doesn't say Veheshiv, He will bring them back. It says Vishav. Vishav means He Himself will return. So the Talmud, the Gemara points out, it doesn't say Veheshiv, it says Vishav. And from there we learn out that whenever and wherever we might be in Galut, in exile, God is there with us. Imo Anochi Bitsara. is the term. I am there with you, batzara, in your anguish. And a parable is given to a simple person who's at the well, drawing water out of the well, and his earthen jug falls into the well. So he feels saddened. There's no way he'll be able to get it out. Next thing happens is the prince and the prince's entourage comes to the well, and they have this beautiful silver bucket, right? And they're drawing water, and that falls into the well. And now he's happy. Why? Why? Not because trouble likes company, but he knows no one was going to bother going down to the well to get his earthen jug. But they'll go down there to get the prince's silver jug. Once they're down there, hey, do you mind bringing up they'll bring his up also. So we're in exile. We wonder, right, will we come out of this exile? Once we hear that, so to speak, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is there with us, so we know the same way that Hashem will leave this exile, so to speak, then so too, we, the earthen jug, will also be lifted up and brought out. So again, in the Hebrew and the English, the Hebrew just contains layer upon layer upon layer. It's not veheshiv, that God will bring them back. It's vishav, that God will return. But the Ramban goes on this pasuk, on this verse of Umal Hashem et levavcha, Hashem will circumcise your heart, ve'et levav zarecha, and the heart of your children, to love Hashem with all your heart and all of your soul. And the Ramban, let me just get the Ramban here. The Ramban says, he explains, what is this idea of circumcision of the heart? And he explains in a very fascinating way. Whoa, this one has Ramban. He explains as follows. Mizman Abriya, from the time of creation, Haita Reshut B'Yad Adam, mankind has had the choice, the decision. Lasod Kirtzano, to do as we wish. Tzaddik, you want to become a righteous person? Fair enough. Rasha, you want to become an arch villain? That's your prerogative. V'chol zman haTorah kain, and that is the status of this world during the whole time we call the zman of the Torah. Why? Kidei she'yeh lehem zechut b'chiratam batov, because that way we have a merit when we choose good. If I have no choice, then I'm not doing anything. It's being imposed upon me. That way there is a merit that I have chosen to do good. Aval yemot HaMashiach, but in the time of the Mashiach, of the Messiah, Tia bechira betov lahem teva. Choosing good will be just the natural, instinctive choice. Lo yitavel lahem halev l'mash enu roi. The heart is not going to desire something that is not proper. V'lo yachbot spoklal, won't want it at all. V'hi hamila, and this is the circumcision of the heart that is mentioned over here. Because these lusts and these desires, they are the uncircumcised, so to speak, heart. And the circumcision is that one will no longer have these desires, these misdirected desires and lusts. The Yeshuva Adam Isman Hahu, Lasher Haya, will go back to the way it was in the Garden of Eden, that the Teva, the nature, was to do the right thing. And that's, he goes further to say, and that is what is referred to, just one second, let's see where he goes further. That's what it says, that there will become times asher ein li bahem chefetz, and that refers to the time of the Mashiach, where we're not going to have those decisions, those challenges, right? But again, it'll be our nature. Just like now, right? I don't have any desire to punch a hole through the window. Why aren't I tempting? No, Ciner, don't do it. Why am I not tempted to punch a hole through the window? I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to scratch myself up. I'm going to get a bill from the synagogue to replace this window, right? They're going to start to wonder, should we actually employ this person as part of our synagogue?
Should we look for a new rabbi?
I'm saying yes, right? Maybe we should get that old search committee back together again and just quietly start. Right? I have no desire to do anything that's going to be harmful to myself and to the general world. No desire. Sins are harmful to oneself and to the general world. We don't see that. Therefore, I have no temptation to punch through the window, but I do have other temptations. When we have this arlat halev removed, when we have this circumcision of the heart, that means that we're going to have this perfect understanding, this clarity, that why would I even consider doing that? Once there is that clarity, then there is no challenge. There is no personal growth. There is no change in myself. There is no reward. The reward is I've become a different person. And it's very interesting. On Yom Kippur, right, we speak about teshuvah, right? Now, teshuvah is not meant to be repenting. Teshuvah is not meant to be just simply, I'm not going to do it. Oh, it was terrible, terrible, terrible. Teshuvah is meant to be, on Yom Kippur, we're not eating, we're not drinking, we're staying in the shul during the day. We are lifting ourselves out of our physical grind, out of our physical existence. And we're looking down on that situation as if from above it, from beyond it, and looking at it and saying, what was I thinking? That wasn't me. That wasn't my values. That wasn't what's important to me. That's not me. I'm not in a haughty way, but I'm above that. I'm not terrible. What I did was a real lapse in who I am, in who I want to be. I saw one of the guys here was wearing a shirt. I wish I was half the man my dog thinks I am. Right? But we're supposed to feel that is beneath me. That's not what I'm about. And the Gemara says, "Ein adam chotei ela imkein nichnas bo ruach shtut." A person only sins if a ruach, a spirit of craziness. Yeah. Right? Rav Noach Weinberg of blessed memory, he would say, sin is temporary insanity. Meaning, temporary insanity, I believe certain things, and I live my life according to certain things, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to hit the pause button. I'm just going to say, well, even though I believe this and I want to live my life like this, I'm just going to hit the pause button and then do X, Y, or Z, and then I will come off the pause and go back to I'm going to suspend what I really believe, what I deep down believe, but sometimes find it hard to actually put in play. I'm going to suspend that. And the Zman Moshiach, the time of Moshiach, will be a time when we will be above all that. And Yom Kippur is a day where we try to catapult ourselves up to that point. Now, if we take it a step further, and I want to get to the Vayelech aspect, a believing person, a person who believes fully that when I die, I leave this world and I go into God's embrace. Why don't we want to die? If I believe that fully, why don't we want to die?
We have the time now to do things before we go.
We have the time now to do things, right? But the ultimate is there. When I die, God's embrace. Why don't I want to die?
To see more things.
Okay, to see more things.
The uncertainty of what's to come also.
Okay, so if we have the uncertainty, I'm with you. But let's say I believe fully.
You're still leaving everybody behind.
Okay, leaving people behind.
Or you're-
Right, okay. There's also a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Right.
But you don't want them.
Right? Right.
To fulfill your the purpose.
Okay, I think we feel I'm not quite ready yet. Meaning at the point of death, whatever I've accomplished, whatever good I've done, that's it. Right? End of story. Right? There's no further growth. There's no further steps that are taken. Whatever good has been done. End of story. I think most of us feel I might be able to utilize some more time to do a little bit better, a little bit more. Now, if that's the case, why do we look for Moshiach? Why do we want Moshiach to come? It's the same situation, really. It's the same situation. Once he comes, that's it. Whatever you've done, right? Whatever challenges you've overcome. Whatever good things you've done, finish. But at that point, it's already instinctive. It's already natural. It's no longer a challenge. There's no longer any reward. So it's sort of, that's it. Right? We close the books. Any accountants here at a certain point, we close the books. Right? So why do we look forward to Mashiach? The same way we don't look forward to death because we feel there's more to do. Why do we look forward to Mashiach? There's also more for us to do.
Because we're not looking at only at personal level, we're looking at the world will be better.
Okay, good. Tov, what do you want to say?
I just want to say, because the ultimate end game is greater than us.
Okay, good. So when we look for Mashiach, we're really, as both of you said, we're really going beyond my own personal interests, but looking at the good of the world, and also looking at the good, so to speak, of Hashem. Meaning that it pains, an example I always like to give, if your father is the one who is supporting a whole city, giving them everything they need, taking care of all the poor, and taking care of everything. But people don't realize that. And people just badmouth that father, saying, right, this guy's dad is so wealthy, he doesn't do a thing for anyone else. And they don't realize that behind the scenes he's doing everything. It's going to eat that child, that son up, that no one realizes what Hashem is doing. Right? That is why we look and hope and await Mashiach coming, that the world will recognize Hashem. Which brings us to the second part. So just quickly to address on page 1094, to address what the question, I mentioned 30 days that Amy had asked about. So the first verse is, Vayelech Moshe, and Moshe went. Vayidaber, and he spoke, so he spoke these matters, these words to all Israel, and he said to them, etc., etc., etc. Right? So, where did Moshe go? What's the first pasuk? Right? Now, the second pasuk is, he said to them, I am 120 years old today, which means, right, that was, the second pasuk is the day that Moshe is going to die. What is then Vayelech Moshe? Moshe went, where did he go? So there are many different approaches. L'Or Chaim's approach is Vayelech Moshe. Moshe felt himself going. And 30 days before a person leaves this world, their neshama goes for a little bit of a trip, a little tiyul, a little tour to see what's going to be up there. Moshe felt himself going. And that's how he knew, oh, I've got 30 days. And therefore, on the day of his death is where he gave this last impassioned speech. But the pasuk said over here on page 1096, page 1097, Hebrew and English. The issue that came up at this panel at the JCC, which is such a fundamental issue, was how do we view God when these natural disasters, Harvey was the discussion then, now we're up to Irma, right? Someone says it sounds like a Jewish group from Florida. Harvey, Irma. Like the Mirage Society got the Young Israel of Deerfield Beach member list and picked all the names from there. Whatever, I don't know. Okay, as long as they don't use Israel, right? As long as they don't use Israel. We don't want Israel bringing destruction to the United States, right? But how does a thinking, feeling, believing person, Jew or non-Jew, how do they deal with God and these disasters that come seemingly indiscriminately to the world and wipes out hundreds of thousands of homes, kills people? How does a thinking Jewish person deal with this? And Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, is one of the classic Jewish thinkers. Right? Mesilat Yesharim, the path of the just, is in his Das Tfunos throughout. The way he explains, Shema Yisroel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem is Elokeinu. Hashem is Elokeinu, our God. What does that mean? Right? The Adata, you should know, Hashem Hu Elokim. God is Elokim. Ein od milvado. There is none besides him. What does Elokim mean? God, he is Elokim. So Elokim is clearly an aspect of God. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem is our Elokim. What does the name Elokim? Now, any name of God is referring to an aspect of God that and how he relates to us. Elokim is that God is all powerful. So we say Hashem Hu Elokim, we're saying is Hashem, all the powers, all the forces that take place, don't be fooled by this smoke screen of Teva, of nature. It's God. So, the way, and we say at the end of Alein every day, God will be one, his name will be one. What is the one name? The one name is Rachman, is compassion. So, the answer that I gave, which is supported by the classic sources, one of the other writers quoted a Gemara, which I disagreed with him on his interpretation of the Gemara, but the classic interpretation that I gave to this difficult problem in tragedy in the world, that by the way Moshe was bothered by, and David in David Hashem Ori V'Yishi, he says that he was troubled by, right? The greatest Jewish minds who certainly believed in God. Moshe believed in God. He didn't have any doubts about that, right? He was troubled by is the pain and suffering and seemingly indiscriminate that goes on in the world? And the answer is, I'm not God. I don't understand. That is the answer. That is the classic Jewish approach. God has a reason. Ultimately, we might be privy to that thinking. We hope we will be. But ultimately, God does everything. And there's a reason for it. And what the Ramchal talks about is Gilui HaYichud, which is the time, like Zman Moshiach, when the Yichud, the oneness, Shema Yisrael Hashem Kino Hashem Echad, that one aspect of God that was moving everything, that God was moving everything and was all based on His goodness and His kindness, that will be how we'll have that Gilui HaYichud, the revelation of that oneness. That is what will ultimately happen. And until then, I am willing to resign myself to the understanding that I don't understand. And as I've said very often, I don't even want to worship a God whose understanding is limited to what could fit into this thick skull of mine, this 2 by 2 inches of gray matter, that God is limited to what I could understand. I don't want to worship such a God, because I know how pathetic my understanding is about simple things. Forget about secrets of the universe. So that is what I would say is the classic Jewish approach.
Rabbi,
Right?
but how do you get around the Rachamim? How do you get around?
I don't.
How do you get around?
My brain can't. My brain can't. But let's explore the other possibilities. Let's explore the other possibilities, right? Because this is a difficult possibility. So let's explore the other possibilities. So it was presented in very flowery terms that God is not there for the tragedy. God is there for the healing afterwards.
But why
Well,
did he did it in the first place?
Okay, right? So that sounds very flowery. That sounds very touching. Oh, God's not there when the hurricane strikes, but He's there afterwards to help, in the rebuilding and the rescue efforts. That sounds very nice and very flowery, but essentially, the way I see it, and if yes, Linda.
Didn't you just teach us a few months ago how we were talking about the Jews were slaves in Egypt, and we were talking, well, why did God make us slaves in Egypt? There had to be a reason.
Correct.
That He wanted us there. And
Correct.
it wasn't the affliction. It was that He had a plan.
Okay, exactly. So we have questions. We have amazingly difficult questions. We have Holocaust. We have tsunamis, right? Just the past 2 weeks, we have Harvey and Irma, right? Right? We have incredible questions to ask. I agree. And I admit I cannot fathom why God would do that. And God certainly lets people make their decisions and live with that, but why would He allow it to go as far as it did by a Holocaust? And when it doesn't involve man's decisions, by a tornado or a hurricane, even if you want to say, well, yes, it was man's decisions. Global warming has created the warmer oceans, which raises the intensity of these hurricanes. Even if one wants to say that, okay, but right, the people who were in Houston were not the decision makers about global warming and carbon imprints. Okay? So I'm with you, Yafi. Right? I cannot fathom it. I cannot wrap my head around it. I do not and cannot understand it. What are the other options? So as I see it, there are 3 theological options that a person has to choose from. The first one is very easy. God can't control it. Now, if one wants to believe in a God that can't control it, it makes this question easier. God can't control it. Okay, so I can't hold him responsible. He's as helpless as we are. Now, clearly, Judaism does not believe in a God who can't. So what are we left with? God can control it. That's the only other option. Now, within God can control it, you have two choices. Because he's not controlling it. The Holocaust happened. Harvey struck. Irma struck. Tsunami struck. Earthquakes. Tornadoes. These things happen. And he can control it. And he's not. And he doesn't control it. So, either you say he can control it, he doesn't control it for a reason, or you say he can control it, he doesn't control it for no reason. Because if you're saying that he's not there in the tragedy, he's there in the healing, you're saying that there's nothing to be gained by it happening. He could have stopped it, but he doesn't. So I said to one of these individuals,